Harley Davidson, the Beatles, Elvis Presley, blockbuster movie. All of these things, you might be wondering, what do they have in common? Well, if you're guessing that it was pop culture that baby boys made significant, you'd be correct. Now you might be wondering, how is this related to gambling? Well, I'll explain that in a little second. Just gonna fast forward the present day to this little game called Roblox. Now, back in the day, baby boomers, they had interests, they had the likes, they made certain things very popular. They made Harley Davidson very popular because after the war, soldiers drove Harley Davidson and they came back and they liked Harley Davidson, bought Harley Davidson. Makes sense. Baby boomers liked Elvis Presley. May also make sense. My generation, we like Pokemon. Guess what? Pokemon, big IP. Nowadays, we have stuff like Minecraft, Roblox, but I really do want to specifically focus on Roblox. Most people think Roblox is essentially a kid's game, and most people would be somewhat correct. However, it's a big platform that's changed from being a kids game platform to a platform to exploit kids. What do I mean? Well, Roblox is really good for people who want to develop games. It's an easy tool set to start off with, and if you develop a game, you can make money. If the game is successful, you can make money from people who buy stuff in-game, or you can make money through people who have premium accounts that play on your game for a long time. And if you do that, you'll get a little bonus. The issue that this ends up becoming is developers will try to make a game that's super addictive to keep the kids hooked on it. Not a bad thing, but we've devolved into this game that I'd like to point out, which is called Souls RNG. So, what is Souls RNG? What are you gambling for? Well, you're only gambling for bruising clout, like literally. Essentially, the whole point of this game is to gamble and roll for auras. And if you don't know what auras is, you're probably living in a rock, but essentially it's just make yourself look like it's Super Saiyan from Dragon Ball Z. There's different effects that come with auras. There's rare ones, there's less rare ones, different colors, and it makes you look cool. But that's all it does, it just makes you look better. And the whole point of this game is to turn it on, AFK, roll, spin, get auras, then hopefully you get one that's good. Now that in itself isn't really a problem, but the biggest problem is that this game is one of the biggest, most popular games. And the problem you could say is that the developers essentially made a game that had the most bang for your buck in terms of profitability because the game is so low effort that it makes so much money. Obviously, there's a bunch of clones already of this game because everyone wants to get their greasy hands on it and get a piece of the pie, but it's just insane how it is. So, why is this such a big problem to talk about? Well, gambling is illegal for kids, at least in the casinos. Gambling for kids is illegal if they're in a casino, especially if they're not old enough. After they get old enough, different issue, but we're gonna stick with gambling in casinos are legal for kids. The reason why gambling in a video game is not illegal is because, number one, at a casino you're not guaranteed a product, but in a gacha game or in any game like Overwatch, CSGO, any of that sort, you're guaranteed a loot box, and in that loot box you're guaranteed a product. You're not guaranteed what you want, you'll eventually get it, but you're guaranteed something, and because you're guaranteed a product, it doesn't make it illegal if you're a kid gambling on it. Now, why is this such a big deal that we have to talk about? The reason why it's such a big deal is because back in the day, kids didn't really have access to gambling like we do now. The closest thing that I can think of is in early days of Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh! You could open up booster packs and hopefully get a card that you wanted. And that's probably the earliest iterations of gambling that I can remember as a kid. Fast forward, we hit the era where Facebook came upon us. They had this game called Candy Crush, which opened the floodgates for microtransaction. I remember the day where my Facebook notifications were filled with people asking me to play this game to refill the hearts. That was a thing. Then we have World of Warcraft when they introduced their cosmetics. The first cosmetic was a foreskin, and it made way more money than StarCraft 2. Microtransactions are the future. Now, fast forward to nowadays with Roblox, you can kind of get where I'm going with this, where from getting a cosmetic product, that, does something. We're now just getting a cosmetic product for the sake of getting a cosmetic problem. Now, what's the problem here? Well, the problem is that it shows you the tension and the priorities of where the kids are at. Because back in the day, Harley Davidson, blockbusters, these were all made popular by people who were kids who turned into adults. If you fast forward and think a little bit with your foresight, we have kids nowadays who are really interested in this game called Souls ING. The whole premise of the game is to gamble, but they're just gambling for Clizzy Road. That's it. Riz and Clo. So could you project where this goes in the future? It doesn't really look that good. And the reason why I say this is because these behaviors they're exhibiting as a kid already could only just get worse as they get older, assuming they don't change. I'll give you an example. Back in the day, there was this little game called MapleStory. I really enjoyed MapleStory, and I would play it as much as I could. It was fun. It was great. But my parents wouldn't let me play a lot of it, especially at night. So what ended up happening was my computer was in the basement floor, and it was in a room where there was a lock on it. But before I would leave that room, once my playtime was up, I would grab an eraser. I would cut it in half so that instead of it being a square, it'd be a triangle, a piece of triangle eraser. I would add a piece of tape on it to lower the friction on this eraser. So I would wrap the whole thing in tape, and then I would stick it in the socket of the door so that when my mom tried to lock the door, it would close and it would lock a little bit so that the door gets jammed, closed enough so that it won't open by itself, but not closed fully where it can't just push the door open. And it was great for a time being, but my parents aren't dumb. They can see when I'm playing video games late at night because my monitor has bright lights when I'm playing video games, and that bright light bleeds into the sides of the door. I thought I was smart by shoving clothes at the bottom of the door to seal off the bottom, but I wasn't able to tape a bunch of clothes around the edges of the door to be able to seal the light. Needless to say, when I heard the banging of the door, I knew I was absolutely screwed beyond belief, but that is not the point. The point I'm trying to say is that as a little kid, I was willing to basically do anything to be able to play games I enjoyed. And that has definitely caused a lot of troubles in me in the future. And that's just me personally. I'm not saying people can't change. I'm just saying if the attention span of kids and what they focus on is essentially idle games where they gamble for whizzing clout, I'd be a little bit concerned about where these kids are going in the future. Now, I'm not saying that all kids are going to grow into this behavior, but what I am saying is just looking at history, there is a saying that history repeats itself, and you can infer, depending on what it is that kids are doing, that they will do in the future. However, I'm not a kid anymore. It looks fun for other people, but as someone who's played video games before, this doesn't look fun at all. But if you're a kid, please do let me know why you find this game fun, why you find it so entertaining, why are so many people playing it. This is just what I think is the issue and how I see it can be a big problem in the future. But I would love to know if there are any kids in here that could tell me, why is this game so popular, so fun for you guys? Are you addicted? Is it enjoyable? Do you like to brag about it to your friends? I'd really like to know down in the comment section down below. Ichiga, signing off. I'll see you guys until the next video.